Oh, they
So
found
just part two.
it. Okay.
Oh, you did?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Just
I think I saw turtle crossing the road the other day.
I didn't mean to make all this commotion.
Well, as your secretary, I'm supposed to escort you.
It's okay.
And you are.
Okay.
Can you do them quick?
So you read that first, and we'll go over each question.
Oh,
If we disagree, then we'll change it because it's filled out by the applicant.
Just
That's-
page 3.
And there should be a cover page somewhere for
Wasn't
you to
ready.
sign.
Yep.
I just signed that.
So read the resolution first?
We just had our grand.
So read the QAF first.
Okay.
Once we all agree on the EAF, then we do the resolution adopting the EAF.
So he's out.
And a notice, necessary because it's just with postage environmental
They just told
notice bulletin. How's that?
his assignment is in January. They want him to go back, but this time he's the commander of what they call a.
Congratulations.
I mean, I'm taking 2 hours every day.
Related.
So they go into Spain.
But
Good.
No,
it's
it's
my way for another.
Good.
kind of, no, it
Oh, yeah, no, it is. I've got a grandson in the,
What if
that's in the Navy.
What's he, where at?
He's right now, he's down, he's based out of Florida. It's not,
Mayport.
yeah,
Ship.
yeah, he hasn't gotten on the ship yet. He's still training in the, helicopters.
Yes.
It's not flying, he's a
No.
mechanic, which I think will be good, good
Yes.
training.
Just a question that you can answer.
You know, so, I have a theory,
Checked off.
one of my, and that's that the
You may have
people
Is this your
checked off.
first one?
that generation
I think
that
it is.
first do anything are
I
gonna
think
make.
this is your first full EAF.
Yeah, no, because
No, I might have done
they're raising.
I think you may have.
Number of
Yeah.
Remember, these are
come into
substantial
town.
impacts, so they're all, because they're really just gonna be renewing.
Yeah.
I mean, to the point of almost not knowing what end of the
It's already
screwdriver
fully
you
built
use.
outside.
Almost to a point they're dangerous.
Yes, they are.
I don't know.
And they come up with this, I mean,
Action
this is
number 11,
surprise kids.
impact on aesthetic changes. I would say it's going to have an impact,
Land
but it's positive.
They know they're on
Yeah.
the agenda.
I'd change that and check yes. Because
Yes.
it's
I'd
been,
say very
I always
positive.
start off,
very
what
positive.
are you trying to do?
Just put down under other impacts,
Get into the
positive
nuts and bolts iron. I said, what are you trying to do? Start
impact.
right there.
For 11?
Yeah,
Aesthetic.
I just think that.
Hi, Liz.
that's
You're,
not-
based on
You could come at a conference
redevelopment of railroad property.
degree that says $150,000
Uh,
student loans and
oh, it's major left, so it's
I'm
major.
sorry.
It's the major.
I'm good. How are you?
3, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10.
Why don't you just switch? Why don't you just switch with Kat? With me here. Not a big
11,
deal.
does projects that containing the species of plant or
I'm
animal.
sure she won't mind.
I have another 11 here.
yeah, no, my own
The project
grandson
require relocation on
just wanted
project
to
for
visit
facilities.
This is,
from, he spent
whatever
5
you're
days
reading
here
is,
last week and, he just not there. I took him around and was showing him how to rebuild the back of the garage.
this is different. This is very
And,
different.
I mean, he had a little bit of an idea and
Here,
he's not as smart.
this is determination of significance.
7 average or
This is
something
not,
like
this,
that. I mean, he gave, one time we were coming home from his house and he was giving me a 45-minute lecture on DNA and I didn't have a clue what I was talking about.
part 2, that's part 1.
That's why.
He's talking about
That's why.
You need part 2.
That's what you would read is down there.
All right, then take this one.
I've already changed.
Yes. Yeah. So that will go back in there, but you can use that one.
You ready?
Yes.
Media Committee, we're ready. Thank you. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the August 21st meeting of the Hyde Park Planning Board. Please take note of all the exits around the room and now join me as we salute the Stars and Stripes.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. And before we begin, I just want to note that one of our colleagues, Mr. Oliver to the right, is participating with his business in the Dutchess County Fair, and he was awarded 2 first prizes, I believe is what it's termed. in landscaping instruction and landscaping design. So it's always great to have a Hyde Park company be received that well at the county fair.
Thank you, Mr. Dupree.
The first item on the agenda is Hyde Park Town Center, which is the applicants are seeking area variances for a number of signs associated with the rebuild of McDonald's, which we already approved. The Zoning Board of Appeals requested a letter from us concerning the requested variances. I circulated a letter around this morning and today. Has everyone had a chance to read it?
Yes.
I made revisions based on comments from Mr. Signa and Ms. Dexter. Thank you both, by the way, for going it through so thoroughly. And in addition, it's also been reviewed by our council. So if no one has any other comments, may I get a motion to authorize me to send it to the Zoning Board of Appeals?
So move.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
The motion carries. That's right. And for the record, Mr. Murphy is recused. Board Member Bickford is not here tonight. He's traveling along with Mr. Groninger, so there are only 5 of us who have voted that way. Thank you, Mr. Murphy, for reminding me.
We need to do the resolution for the bonus.
Yes, the second item that we need to do is, because the Zoning Board of Appeals has to grant the minimum variance necessary, and it's within the power of the Planning Board to first grant dimensional discretionary increases. We have a resolution prepared to an increase of symbols from 10 inch or letters from 10 inches to 14 inches. This would apply to sign number 2, the proposed sign that would be at the gable end wall facing Route 9. Does anyone have this resolution, or is it for me to read?
I have it.
Okey-doke.
Yes. Resolution granting discretionary bonus to increase maximum size of letter, symbol, or graphic pursuant to Town Code Section 108-24.2F2. McDonald's wall sign, date August 21st, 2013, resolution number 7-10D. Whereas, now therefore be it resolved that the board makes the following findings with respect to the requested bonus to permit a maximum letter or symbol height of 14 inches in any direction for the proposed alternate wall sign number 2 McDonald's, and the requested sign bonus to permit a maximum letter height of 14 inches or a maximum logo size in all directions of 14 inches on wall sign number 2, M. 1, the additional size of the symbols and letters is appropriate given the sign's distance from the road. 2, the increase in size is appropriate due to the size of the building upon which the wall sign is being placed. Be it further resolved, the board hereby grants the applicant the requested sign bonus to permit a maximum height of 14 inches or a maximum logo size in all directions of 14 inches on alternate wall sign number 2, McDonald's, and wall sign number 2, M, with the understanding that only one sign may be placed on the proposed location, which is located more than 80 feet from the entry of Route 9, as shown on plans entitled McDonald's, prepared by Bowler Engineering, dated June 6, 2013, and plans last revised July 17, 2013, and received by the Planning Board on August 16, 2013.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed or abstain? Mr. Murphy is recused, so he abstains, or he's recused, he's not voting, and we have 2 members absent, our board alternate, Mr. Bickford, and Vice Chairman Groninger. The next item on the agenda is Hyde Park Assisted Living Facility. As a reminder to the public, this is the former Hobo located at 394 Violet Avenue, and the applicant's here. They're requesting site plan approval to convert the Hobo into an assisted living facility. It involves significant improvements to the site, in the board's opinion, or at least in the board's comments thus far. And what we're here for tonight is to look to make a determination for secret purposes so that you can then go back to the Zoning Board of Appeals. I believe that if we get this done tonight, they may be able to take action on your variance request. And just, again, for the public's edification, in this district, the maximum gross square footage allowed is 7,500. The building far exceeds that. Since the use lapsed, they only have the right to use 7,500 square feet of the building. So the variance request will allow you to occupy the whole site, plus use the associated parking, et cetera. Do you guys want to add anything for tonight?
No, I think that's it.
Are you Mr.
Burnaby.
Burnaby?
Yes.
Okay. It's nice to meet you, finally. We've had your colleague here only before. And any comments from the consultants? Ms. Axelson? Mr. Learn?
You want to go first?
Chip and Dale?
Go first. Chip and Dale.
Well, we've been going back and forth a little bit with the applicant's engineer on the average daily flow rate that's anticipated for the facility. We reviewed something on Monday and we asked them to increase it a little bit. Today they got back to us with a number that we're more comfortable with. And as part of the EAF review, the idea is to show on the site plans how a subsurface disposal system could be installed if it comes to be that an agreement can't be made with the town and the adjacent owners. So with the sketches that we've seen today, we're confident that something could be done to make work without the central sewer system on a conceptual basis. In the end, the health department will have to make that final approval, but from our point of view, it looks like it's feasible for that to work, particularly for environmental review purposes.
Just to add, in case someone in the audience didn't understand that, when you say flow rate, what we're talking about here is wastewater.
Correct.
The concern was merely for secret purposes, for environmental impacts. The conversion to the site will increase the water and wastewater usage substantially from a bowling alley, which was used way back when. The adjacent property to the south is connected into the Town of Poughkeepsie Sewer District. And so the applicants are proposing having an easement to go through the building or the property, I should say, to the south, owned by Page Park, and then connect into the city's district to become a tenant to it. But sometimes the negotiations to do that can take a long time because it involves town boards, decisions by other agencies beyond our control. So rather than try to wait to conclude seeker to make certain that there was enough room for the wastewater, what we proposed to the applicant was that they have their engineer take another look and say, well, if you can't tie into it, is there a way you can use what's on site? And it is a 5.9 acre site, I believe. So what their engineer, Richard Renia, has done is demonstrate to this board, I believe we've all had a chance to read everything today, as well as to our consultants who are confident that if they're unable to hook into that system, they'll be able to use the site, use what's on site for sewage disposal. It'd be a conventional septic, I think it's 12 pieces, et cetera. So that was our only big seeker issues that was outstanding. Ms. Axelson, you wanted to make some comments?
Just briefly, I think the word confident is a good word. This is a great use for the site. There's a decrease in impervious surface area that's notable. We now have 5-foot sidewalk on the plans. I'm very pleased about that. And improved colors and some improved landscaping. The only thing I wanted to do before this meeting is over is get a little bit of feedback from the planning board on the landscaping. Just hear your thoughts about that. Okay?
I actually had a discussion with Mr. Burnaby, and after conferring with Ms. Moss, we both think that Cladicea tricanthos inermis, common name honey locust, would probably be the best trees to plant up front. The reason why I say that is we started thinking honey locusts are the trees you see right up in front of where Hyde Park Pizza and Two Taste is, the plaza. These are also the trees that you see in Rhinebeck, and you'll see others around. They're on the DOT list, and the leaves are really small, so it would not add anything to your staff. It'll provide shade for people walking by, screening, et cetera, but when the leaves are falling off in the fall, they virtually disappear into the ground. There's not a lot of raking or anything else. So it seems an inexpensive alternative for you than to what we were first talking about, which were large, immense shade trees. Okay? Great. And for the rest, I actually spoke to Mr. Burnaby on the phone because I was questioning why he put in buttonbush, which is, it needs to wick up moisture. If it's a dry area, it will actually die. But they are native, which is what we're trying to go more and more toward, those of us who are environmentally sensitive. And he explained to me that the topos that are underlying, because this is primarily underneath asphalt, but the topos, this is a lower area, so water will collect in the area, and it'll be a natural way to wick up the water.
Right.
I'm glad you just said that because that was my question. My concern is that there is a slight slope down into the site, and now, I'm saying, you're going to say this, but will we get too much water? And thank you for explaining
It was a thoughtful use of a native. I don't think we've ever seen buttonbush proposed before for, well, much more manicured landscaping plans, put it that way. Buttonbush is an indicator of wetlands, and it's also indicator of a vernal pool that Blanding's turtles like. That's why we don't see it proposed very often, because it is native. Anything else, Ms. Axelson?
That's really it. I wondered about the northern property line a little bit in the front, but I'm not sure that's as much of a concern. There are existing trees there, and we had discussed doing like just a few evergreens, not much, not a hedge, just like a few, and I didn't see those. That was it, really. Otherwise, I think the plan's coming along fine.
I do as well. Any comments, Ms. Polidoro?
We have a negative declaration prepared, which takes into consideration both alternates, which would be the connection to existing facilities or the possibility of them installing a septic disposal system on site. So if the board is ready to adopt that tonight, the resolution is ready.
Thank you. Before I go on, I'm going to play now the mean Mr. Dupree. In your response letter, and I appreciate the responses to each of the comments from Morris Associates, but your responses say that after discussion with Mr. Peter Sotero, PE, this matter is resolved. Mr. Sotero does not make decisions. The planning board does. Any discussion with Mr. Sotero, he can feel free to advise us, and I wish he were here to hear this. I'll be telling him, but he knows better. He does not make decisions for the board. And I don't mean that rudely at all. It's just that's how the system works, and we're not going to delegate our authority over. This also, by the way, provides legal protection to you. I don't think we're going to have any kind of lawsuit, but if we were to appear to have given away our what we're supposed to be doing, our duties, then it is something that could be litigatable, and I want to make sure that we don't ever lose a lawsuit. We haven't so far, knock on wood. We're in the middle of another, and I think we're going to prevail over there as well. So that noted, board members, when you go through the responses, just make sure that you agree with what Mr. Sotero is sort of recommending in those responses. They're not big, it's just that I want to make sure everything stays clean. Let me start to my left. Mr. Signa, any comments?
No, I made my comment. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Murphy?
No, but I'm okay with the neg deck.
Thank you. That's what I wanted to hear. Ms. Dexter?
I think it's a great project and happy to vote on the neg deck tonight.
Mr. Oliver?
Very excited to see redevelopment of, an existing site in a part of town that definitely needs some redeveloping. And, again, excited to vote this evening. Thank you.
Mr. Marsigliano?
Great project.
Okay, it's a really good sign when Mr. Oliver, who has to read all of this, says that he's excited to vote on it tonight, too. So.
I didn't say I was excited about reading, but
He'll get seniority in another 20 years.
okay. Part 2 of the EAF for the Hyde Park Assisted Living Facility. 1, will the proposed action result in a physical change to the project site? No. 2, will there be an effect to any unique or unusual landforms found on the site? No. 3, will propose...
Go back to question 1 for a moment. There will be a physical change.
Well, yes, but aren't these significant impacts? I mean, if we evaluate it as significant, the major change is a reduction in impervious. Should we say yes, but it's a positive change?
Yeah, I would mark yes, and then in the box where it says other, reduction in impervious surface.
Yeah, because it is actually pretty significant.
There you go.
It's actually, isn't it about an acre that's being removed of impervious asphalt?
So in
Small
that-
to moderate
It's a
impact.
big
Yeah.
reduction.
That's a big it's a positive impact.
Yes, small,
No, this is not the right one.
but it's a positive reduction in impervious coverage. An increase in landscaping.
And an increase in pervious, increase in landscaping. And there's an addition.
Impervious.
Yep, and there's an addition of a sidewalk as well where none exists now for pedestrian improvements.
So it goes along with the other.
I mean,
3, will proposed action affect any water body designated as protected? No. 4, will proposed action affect any non-protected existing or new body of water? No. 5, will the proposed action affect surface or groundwater quality or quantity? No. 6, will proposed action alter drainage flow or patterns or surface water runoff? No.
In
7,
a
will...
significant way?
I'm only being a stickler tonight because we are going to be reviewing the new seeker forms in a little while. And so Yes, it is going to change that.
Small to
But
moderate,
again,
because you're going
other-
to,
it's
it's
gonna
an
be
improvement,
positive.
because you're going to be reducing
Just
the amount
gonna
of storm, sheet flow.
change floodwater flows,
Existing drainage patterns.
existing drainage patterns, small to moderate.
And then that's a positive.
Right, because it's going to be reducing the amount of sheet flow. It'll be more direct absorption and penetration into the ground.
Do you wanna stay for the new forms?
7, will proposed action affect air quality? No. 8, will proposed action affect any threatened or endangered species? No. 9, will proposed action substantially affect non-threatened or non-endangered species? No. 10, will proposed action affect agricultural land resources? No. 11, will proposed action affect aesthetic resources? Yes. Under other impacts, positive, it'll be a positive impact based on the redevelopment of an empty building. 12, will proposed action impact any site or structure of historic, prehistoric, or paleontological importance? No. 13, will proposed action affect the quantity or quality of existing or future open spaces or recreational opportunities? No. 14, will proposed action impact the exceptional or unique characteristics or of a critical environmental area established pursuant to subdivision 6 NYC RR 617.14? No. 15, will there be an effect in existing transportation systems? No. 16, will proposed action affect the community's sources of fuel or energy supply? No. 17, will there be objectionable odors, noise, or vibration as a result of the proposed action? No. 18, will proposed action affect public health and safety? No. 19, will proposed action affect the character of the existing community? No. 20, is there or is there likely to be public controversy related to potential adverse environmental impacts? No.
And now the resolution.
Yeah, the resolution.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Resolution to adopt a negative declaration for Hyde Park ALF, resolution number 17-13A, whereas, now therefore be it resolved that the planning board hereby adopts the determination of non-significance, finding that the project as proposed will not result in any significant adverse environmental impacts and that a draft environmental impact statement will not be prepared, and directs the secretary to the board to send notice of the determination to all involved agencies.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Congratulations. Good luck before the ZBA. I believe we sent a letter to the ZBA recommending they grant the variance at our July 17th meeting. So if all goes well, we'll see you shortly. Do we think it's ripe to set the public hearing? May I get a motion to set the public hearing for,
I would set it for after,
the ZBA meets a week from tonight.
oh. There's
no lines.
May I get a motion to set the public hearing for September 4th?
So
Thank you.
moved.
Is there a
Second.
second? All in favor?
Aye.
We'll see you back on September 4th. Happy Labor Day in the meantime. Thank you. The next item on the agenda is a site plan waiver request for a new home located at 84 Hyler Drive from a Mr. Neshawat. We have a recommendation from the zoning administrator. In addition, this site is at the bottom of Hyler Drive and will not be visible from the Hudson River, which is what gives rise to why we have to do the site plan review in the first place. Who has this file?
I do. Town of Hyde Park Planning Board, site plan waiver, Town Code Section 108-9.4C2, August 21st, 2013, resolution number 13-29. Whereas an application requesting a waiver of site plan has been made to the Town of Hyde Park Planning Board by Victor Neshawat on August 6, 2013, for property located at 84 Hyler Drive, Hyde Park, and whereas, now therefore be it resolved that the Town of Hyde Park Planning Board hereby waives site plan requirements for the file entitled Neshawat Residence regarding the specific request as submitted on August 6, 2013, and as specified in the building permit application and erosion and sediment control permit application for this property. Do I have a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries unanimously. Congratulations. Good luck on building the new house. The next, it's the exact same house. The next item on the agenda is a sign permit recommendation for Gasland Petroleum. To remind everyone, this is for the Sunoco that is under construction at present down at, I think it's Parker, but where Pine Woods ends at Route 9, where the traffic light is. We have the recommendation from the zoning administrator. In addition, yes, we don't have the, oh, that's right.
Right, we're
I take that back.
talk about
We had a recommendation from the zoning administrator,
more
but
info about the planter box.
for the audience, there's a couple of issues, one of which there's a symbol on it that is bigger than what our code allows, and it's not one that we can grant dimensional increases on. It's in the wrong location, and it's not a wall sign. So we're going to have a meeting with the applicants. And the sign that was first proposed, that we all generally looked at for sign location and approved, had a planter box. The planter box is now gone because of a decorative element, so that's something for all of us to review and take a look at and get back to me and tell me if you prefer the planter box and plantings or what was proposed. So we'll defer that to the September 4th agenda.
Oh, okay, they're not here.
The next item on the agenda is Clancy's Cafe and Creamery, which was formerly Inside Scoop. Are the applicants here tonight? Would you like to come up and speak just for a moment?
Yes. Or you can just take it right there.
Hi.
Yeah.
Welcome to Hyde Park.
Well, thank you very much.
Glad you're changing I'm glad that you're opening the business in a site that, we've had a business, but I think they were trying to get out. So I think you're changing a little bit of the business. You're not just going to serve ice cream. You're going to do a little bit more food, or?
Yeah, food, cafe, open for breakfast.
Can you speak into the microphone a
Yeah,
little
You
bit?
just pull it over there.
Sorry. Yeah, we're going to be served for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. Cafe system, open all year round. We have a whole coffee system, roasting beans.
I got it.
And all that fun stuff, so it's going to be a good addition.
Good.
Yeah.
Do we have a resolution prepared?
No, we need to talk about some of the
Okay.
elements on there, the cones.
I apologize, because Ms. Moss is not here tonight, and I thought she was going to have a chance to speak to you first.
She did, it was a little confusion. I guess she spoke to the gentleman who is doing the sign up, and she told him that there was a couple of things that needed to be changed, and then I called, and I was told from the zoning office that everything's fine, just come on in. And I could have made those changes and hadn't presented them to you tonight. So I'm a little disturbed that that was a little miscommunication.
It was a very rough day today, believe me.
I know, it was rough for me,
This didn't even
too.
seem to pass by, I didn't seem to get an email based on this. From what we talked about at our agenda meeting, the cafe sign, the way it's shaped, the little red cafe sign.
That's not going to be there.
Ah.
That's going to be eliminated from, and that's not on my sign proposal or permit.
Perfect.
Okay.
And I think the other issue is that the ice cream cone signs were never approved, and Ms. Moss wants them down.
Oh, they've been down.
Oh,
I ripped them down.
they just show up on our picture.
Oh, yeah, they ignore the picture. They were ugly.
Ms. Moss is coming? With a resolution, maybe?
I think there was an issue with the sign, it didn't conform.
In
I
terms
believe.
of size?
But she can answer that when she comes in.
I'm a little confused about that too, though, because we are 60 feet from the road, and so we increased the letters to accommodate that, from 10-inch to 13-inch, because that's what the law says. So I don't understand why there'd be an issue.
Well, the law doesn't say you're allowed that. It's at our discretion.
Oh, is it your discretion? All
Yes,
right.
the law, it is a law. The zoning code is that we have to make findings that it's appropriate to the size of the building, that
Right.
it's set back, that it looks right. We did this basically,
Sorry, I was trying to prepare a letter and a resolution in hopes that this could go through tonight.
do you want to go back to the computer and keep working? I have a feeling that the applicant would not mind waiting if we can get it done tonight.
I absolutely don't mind. I'd love to get this done and completed.
Do you want to
Maybe
go
we
back
can
working?
just understand what's,
So we just have to have findings, and I believe that, I'm willing to state right now that the signage seems appropriate and the letters for the size of the building that it's going to be placed on, which is one of the requirements for granting the increase. In addition, I think it's a nice-looking sign. I like your font style.
Thank you.
Was there any other issue? The cafe sign has been removed from the application, so it will not be recommending that you do a permit for that, and the ice cream cones have apparently already been taken off.
Permanently gone, the ice cream cones?
They're gone, and if anybody wants
Permanently
some, I
gone.
have a bunch of them in the back.
No,
Okay?
thank you.
They're free.
oh, wow.
No,
Get
but
excited, right?
I would like to let the board know that there is an outstanding violation on this sign. and that this is in furtherance of a resolution of that violation, and I'm anxious to get it taken care of, so.
Would you like to tell us what the mysterious violation is?
Well, the sign never had a permit to begin with, that's why.
And there
it's
you are.
Large, and it's internally lit, and
I didn't do it.
I know that this applicant didn't.
Trust me, we know that, and we're trying to help.
We know that you're trying to rectify
And the
everything.
applicant prepared a replacement sign of the same size, but it's too large, so now it has to go back and be reduced a little bit, and at least it's not internally lit.
But the sign that's proposed is, that we see here now is of a
Is-
correct size?
No, it's 3 square feet too big, so she's gonna have to go back and
Oh.
And I don't, I thought about that. I don't understand why it's 3 square foot too big,
Well,
based
what-
on the frontage of the
the
building.
lineal front of the building
Right.
on a plan that I have measures 27 feet.
Is that now the building itself or the roof line
The
that
building.
goes?
The
Okay,
building.
because we based it on the size of the roof line that goes
Yeah.
out, and that goes out about a foot on each side.
Right.
We based it on that measurement.
It's just the lineal footage of the actual building.
Front of the
Okay.
building.
And
So-
instead of deceiving as the front of the building, that front sign would be
Yeah.
the square footage, so there's a fine.
That's
line.
actually the first time we've had this as, come up as a problem, though, from the sign code.
And the other
And a man-
thing that I think we talked
Yeah.
about in the office
I mean,
was
for
the
dimension.
neon signs inside the windows, that there can only be the one.
There's only one, the hot dog one is gone, and it's non-blinking.
Okay.
And I think that's what you asked.
And the temporary sign that had been rolled out in between the two properties and on a vacant parcel, actually, has at least been moved to the same parcel that the building is on, and that will be removed within the next 10 days.
Yeah.
So would we be making a recommendation that you grant the sign permit based on a reduction of 3 square feet?
That's what I'm hoping.
Okay, then
Is
why,
there a CO there now?
No,
There is no CO.
no.
How can we entertain?
Because this is in resolution of one of the outstanding violations that's
Right.
on the property.
we can take
It's actually
action
fixing
if it fixes an outstanding violation. We're allowed to take action. And this does remove one of the violations. It does not remove the CO violation.
No.
But the CO was not, you probably were unaware that there was a CO in the building?
I was not aware until I met with, and put the permit in, and I was a little surprised.
If you'd like to just take a seat back in the audience, we'll let Ms. Moss go back and continue furiously typing, and we'll see if we can't take care of this evening.
All right, thank you very much.
Would you approve it conditioned on it shrinking by 3 square feet?
Correct.
That would be a
Are you-
condition.
are you-
The other thing that the applicant
Grant
is
sign, but-
seeking is a tenant panel on the freestanding sign.
Hold on, Ms. Moss.
They are aware that the freestanding sign is too tall, and it will need to be reduced in height and replaced by September of 2015. And while we don't have a drawing of, that tenant panel at this time, I don't know if it would be possible for the board to grant that at this time.
It's
That-
going to be exactly what's on the building, but reduced down to fit in the existing panel that's already there.
And it'll be dark letters on a light background that's similar to the other tenant panels that are on the sign. But that's up to you. If you're not comfortable with that and you want to see that tenant panel, it'll come in as a separate application.
What's your recommendation? Remember, all we're doing is recommending that you grant the sign permit. And if
I
it's,
don't have a problem.
if it's going to look
as
the
long
exact
as
same as what
it's-
we're seeing, then we've already seen it. It's up to the rest of the board as well. Board, would you like to see a copy of the the proposed tenant panel, which I think is basically
Before
just
the
this
sign
reduced,
permit
before the
is
sign the second sign permit would be granted? Are you comfortable with having this recommendation cover both?
I'm concerned that we're rushing, and I don't know if it's to your benefit. When something happens then, if it's only 2 weeks, we're talking.
Sure.
In terms of.
We can
of
grant
weight.
one.
Yeah, for the tenant panel, my question to you is, do you need a picture of the other panels to compare? Would that be helpful?
I think
Yeah,
that's what
usually
we're
we
looking
can-
for. We
usually
should like
it's-
to see the design unity.
Yeah, I could do that.
It's usually just
Absolutely.
superimposed on the existing so that we see what the new panel looks like with all the existing tenant
I could do
panels
that
on there.
definitely, and
Okay.
then make
Right.
the recommendations based
We'll do
Yeah,
one-
this
I
way,
could do that.
this way, we're going, I'm feeling a lot of
I felt
rushing.
that way all day.
Yeah, and it's just, no, really, for your benefit, because if something is done incorrectly, then we got a real mess. So-
We could absolutely do that, and then you guys make
I
a
don't think we
recommendation if
should
there's
go
any
and
colored
do any of
pieces or
this
whatever. All right.
before there's a CO on the premises. I just don't. We're taking our enforcement tool and we're saying, well, let's ignore our enforcement
We're
tool.
not an enforcement.
Basically, they shouldn't have a business if they don't have a CO.
Ms.
I kind of
Polidori,
agree with Shane on that one.
Do you want to weigh in on this? His question is, are we allowed to make a sign recommendation where there is a building
I
that
don't
has
care
no
whether we're
CO?
allowed to or not, I just think it's terrible.
Oh.
The idea that we're just throwing it away
I
and,
will go look at the violations that I have issued. I don't know if there's one specifically for not having a CO.
yes or no. They either got it or they don't have it.
Where
It's
does
not a
that,
maybe, it's not a gray area. It's,
No.
they either have a CO or they don't have a CO, they
But it
don't.
may not have been a violation.
Right,
Well,
so,
Not have been
if you
violated.
grant them a CO, then I'm okay with it. But I'm not okay with giving them a sign permit when there is no CO.
I have a question for you. The CO issue is the landlord itself. We purchased the business with the impression that the building had a CO. Where does that leave me?
That leaves you with a landlord that's in violation, and the only way we can get him into conformity is to tell him that he can't have a business there unless he conforms like everybody else in this town.
Right.
All right? I'm sorry, but you're in the middle of it, but the point is that this town has for a long time ignored this kind of thing. I think it's dangerous. I don't think it's a good thing. I think it's a bad precedent for this board to knowingly grant a permit when there's no CO.
Right.
so the codes in section 108-30.1, compliance required, it says, "No application shall be received, nor shall any application be reviewed, granted, etc. If there are any existing violations of this chapter," and we have always interpreted this section to mean an existing violation of record. So there are lots of violations in the town that we see, but there's been no official notice from the zoning administrator. So I would just ask that you check with the zoning administrator on the list of the violations.
My
I've been
point,
evaluated.
my point is this, all right? There's a big difference between not having a CO and having an illegal sign or some other minor violation on the property. We're not talking about something minor here. We're talking about something very basic that A, should never have happened to start with, all right? There should never have been permitted to have a business in there without a CO. As my understanding of the law, I didn't get benefit of the law degree like you did. But in this town, okay, this is going on, and there's other people who spend a lot of money to come into conformity and come up to me and say, why did I do that?
I don't disagree. I think it's definitely an enforcement problem. I'm just saying the purview of the planning board is that you can only concern yourself with an existing violation of record. So you can either ask Ms. Moss to look into it and state, do you give a violation? And that will prevent you from issuing the sign.
Well, I'm asking Ms. Moss to either grant them a CO or not grant them a CO, which would necessitate her, naming the violation or violations, all right? And I don't think this board ought to,
Well, she can't grant a CO until all violations are removed,
right.
because that's
I know
that's
that.
the
I
reason why they're
understand that.
violations.
And the COs originate through the building department, not through me.
Well, but regardless, of where, if they don't have one, we shouldn't be hearing this.
I mean, one option is that you're only making a recommendation here, you're not actually issuing a permit. You could recommend that the sign permit be granted on the condition that the violations are corrected, or only once the violations are corrected, so that she doesn't have to come back before this board.
I have a question for you. These violations are not mine.
That's-
Okay, and that's where the problem lies. We took over the business unbeknownst to us and paid my life fortune on it.
Yeah,
And
I
by you not
understand.
doing this and saying that I can't get my sign means I cannot have my business. Can't have my business,
If
I
we
lose
grant
out,
you
so-
your sign, there's no pressure on your landlord to come into conformity like the rest of the town.
from what I understand,
All
the
right.
pressure on the landlord's been on him for 8 years and nothing has been done. So, I mean.
I'll buy into that.
No, I mean, so I'm just saying is that why all of a sudden now when I come in, they've been in
Be-
existing business for 8 years and then I come in.
Because
do
you're
the right
asking,
thing.
you're asking this board to
Yeah.
grant you a permit. That's why it's
Right.
come to this.
Well, I want to do the right thing with the
We
sign.
don't grant the sign permit.
Oh, all right, okay, sorry.
Recommend.
Let's
Do
split
not- we
hairs.
do
We
not have those- But we
recommend.
don't have those powers.
Well, we have the powers not to.
We have the
not
powers to
recommend.
authorize our zoning administrator to help to affect the resolution of some of these violations, and if one of them is the sign, that it never had a sign permit, if that's one of the violations, then it seems to me one of the ways we can help to get that CO is to allow her, under certain conditions, to grant that sign permit.
We don't know.
And that
where-
will help
we
to
don't know where that
reduce the,
mystery's at.
that will help, but that's her job, not my job.
Right.
And so by reducing one of the violations,
No.
then that
no.
will get her closer to a CO. By not allowing her to do a sign permit at this point, she will never get a CO.
I'd like to add that some of the violations are for other businesses that are located on the site. The landlord operates, or there are various tenancies to the site. One of the things we've tried to do as a planning board over the last 8 years that I've been on it, along with all of you, is try to project a more business-friendly image. I understand that that we should not be saying to everybody who has violations to say, sure, just keep making changes, we'll let you keep looking the other way. But at the same time, this board doesn't do enforcement. That's up to the town board, as well as the enforcement officer, which is also Ms. Moss, et cetera, as to how to go about this. And I think that we would be penalizing a new business into town, someone who's already spent money and taken a risk by coming into Hyde Park in the first place, by not letting any sign go up, pending trying to get all the violations cleared up, because if there were 5 and this was reducing 1, I'm going to agree with Ms. Dexter, that's an improvement, but I think that the other 4 have nothing to do with this business, and I don't know how we would have leverage, or how Ms. Moss has any leverage by not approving this, to see that those are done. As the applicant just stated, it's been 8 years, and no amount of pressure has really been able to make the owner of the site come into compliance, because there isn't, I mean, just to say we're not going to give you a CO obviously hasn't done anything.
Because we haven't enforced the law, okay, doesn't mean that we can't do anything. We have chosen for one reason or another not to enforce the
Well,
law.
not we, but I mean, yes, the town has chosen, but I mean,
Somebody.
this should,
I was
this
going to
should
say,
be,
if we could be really careful, when you say "we,"
All
please, it is not the planning board.
No.
You should only be speaking as the planning board member, not on behalf of a town board or any other thing. We have not done anything. We don't go after people. When you say those things, and you say "we," you mean kind of the town as a collective.
Right.
But sitting where you are right now tonight as a planning board member,
Okay.
I don't think we should
I'll
be doing that.
substitute the word "the town"
okay.
for
Thank you.
"we."
Because
okay?
I don't want anybody to
But
think
it
that I'm
doesn't-
sitting
it
here
doesn't- it
not
doesn't
doing my
change the
job.
facts.
Mr.
Okay.
Murphy, I know that.
Wait. We're going to stop the sort of,
Sorry, but
no, the inflamed rhetoric here. We haven't heard from 2 other colleagues. I mean, I'm certainly willing to go forward on this, because as I said, it removes an existing violation, and I don't think it's fair to penalize a new business. But we haven't heard from Mr. Signa or Mr. Marsigliano, because you've heard one person who may be voting against granting it. Another one might also, Mr. Oliver. If the vote would go down, then you deserve to hear that first as it is. I think you heard 2 people that are in favor of moving forward. So, gentlemen, do either one of you want to stick your necks out and say whether you're willing to vote tonight?
I would also like to comment.
Yes. I'll start with you
We,
then. Mr. Marsigliano?
We're here considering simply whether or not to grant the permit for the sign, is that correct? And we're not able to do that if there's an existing violation, is that correct?
No, we can, so long as that this makes it come into greater compliance.
Right. So if there's an existing violation of record, you're not supposed to approve anything or review anything unless the application is to fix that violation. So in this case, if there is an existing sign violation and this application will allow for an approved sign to be placed on the site, that ameliorates the violation.
Okay, so the violation actually involves the sign, and this will
Well,
eliminate
No,
the violation.
this one, Ms. Moss does know, right.
This would eliminate the violation on the sign.
And so now we have another issue, and that is, can we grant a permit for a sign to go up on a building that does not have a CO? I'm not clear on whether we can do that, or
and that's where I suggested the compromise, that you recommend issuance of the sign based on the applicant working out the other issues with Ms. Moss.
No offense, because I love you dearly, but that was a nice sidestep. The question is specifically, is it legal for us to grant a sign permit to a business or a building that has no CO? Not, should we condition it to try to,
It depends on if there's actual, if
there's a real
we know
violation.
that there's no CO, if there's an existing violation on record that says there's no CO. I mean, we have plenty of businesses in town that do not have a CO, that have signs on them, but there was no existing violation of record that they did not have a CO. And so that's the answer I don't have, is there an existing violation of record?
Ms. Moss, can you go take a look to see through the is it easy for you to find the record of violation sent or not?
I can go check.
When I say easy, if you'd like to resolve this tonight, that seems to be the sticking point right there. Because if we condition the sign permit on the issuance of the CO, you're back at the same situation where the landlord,
Yeah. And if we don't, then we've.
I mean, quite frankly, I don't remember what all the
Pressure from
violations
the
are.
I mean, alls I know is anything, and I talked to Ms. Moss about this, any violations that I could personally correct, even if the landlord caused it, I'm going to do it. Because I plan to stay in Hyde Park for quite a long time. But there's certain things that are beyond my control. And my finances. So, you know, it's either you have a business or
I
you don't.
understand what you're saying,
Yeah.
and I'm not trying to be difficult, but for instance, if somebody had a shopping center,
Right.
and one of the tenants came in and started putting neon signs.
This is a
and
shopping center
flashing-
by our code definition. This is a
Yeah,
shopping
I know.
center.
And, I mean, it is ultimately the landlord that we have the issue with, not the tenant. And once we grant this sign, it may be another 8 years before we have any
No matter-
pressure to
no matter what, you'll have
submit on the landlord, because he in effect has shown no inclination to correct the issues in 8 years.
He's shown no remorse, but is it an appropriate tool for the planning board to use the withholding of a sign permit recommendation to force the landlord to come into compliance when our only power to me is that if this one step makes it come a little bit more into compliance, then we should take that action. I mean, if he's got 5 violations and one comes off, then we've done something positive for the evening, plus we've welcomed a new business into town that by the applicant's own admission wants to stay here for a while.
And I think it's going to be an improvement for the area. You know, again.
I'm not saying it's not, and I'm not saying you're not going to improve it. I'm saying that if we take all the people who spent money and time and effort to come in front of this town to obey our ordinances, okay, came in front of these boards, and the cost of money, engineering, signs, and everything else. There was a competitor down the street that we made him put up a temporary sign just to see how it was, all right, and and for them to do that and go through all the expense and do the things right, and then we just say, well, this guy down the street doesn't do it right, but that's okay.
But
I've got a problem with it, that's all.
For the permit,
But-
I am, and I'm doing the right thing.
And if you're
So-
referring to the Williams lumber sign, that's why you and I, with Victoria's help and a bunch of others, changed the sign code, because we saw,
I was actually talking about Rita's. Remember Rita's? We put up Rita came in here 5 or 6 times, 2 or 3 months, okay, to come into conformity. And a quarter mile down the street, the ice cream cones are there and everything else. And these people are saying to me, what'd I do that for?
which you didn't, right?
They did the right thing, and that's.
They did the right thing.
Yeah, and that's a good thing.
Ms. Moss, do you have any light to shed?
There's no violation that I could find that was sent regarding no certificate of occupancy. The other 2 violations relate to the vacant parcel for the temporary sign that was periodically lit and had pricing on it, and that is being removed. And the other is also not on this parcel. It is the second freestanding sign that is actually on an adjacent parcel and is off premises.
Then,
Is that the one that hangs? That's
Yep.
that has their name on it. We're changing the name, and I'm taking the chainsaw. So that'll be gone.
I like your attitude.
Problem fixed.
I like your
Are you saying
moxie.
At this point, that if they came in and asked for a CO, they'd be granted a CO at this point? Assuming those sign violations were gone, is that the way I'm understanding it?
I have not issued any violations regarding lack of certificate of occupancy. I do not know whether Mr. Westermeyer has.
So
I
there's,
don't believe that he has, but I
it's doubtful.
don't know.
He doesn't issue those very often without your concurrence. And to
And the
answer,
And there, there's a multitude of issues. I don't think we're going to be able to deal with them tonight.
first, Mr. Oliver wanted to make additional comments. Chris?
Again, I think this situation's very, unique, and it's unfortunate that, you are trying to do the right thing and you're coming before the board and making the right steps. I mean, from my position, I think that, you know, I would be very comfortable granting a recommendation, but a conditional permit based on obtaining a CO. And I know that that might, you know, affect you and your business and completely, as a business owner, understand. But it's hard as a board to sit up here or a board member and say, okay, I know that this building is operating without a CO and granting a permit knowing that, so.
I mean, I don't know what the landlord needs to do to get the CO. So
Ms. Moss, I think, just enumerated what the violations are.
The landlord and the landlord's attorney were advised in like maybe 10 as to what was required.
Do you remember how many steps there are? I mean, one of the violations is not on this parcel.
That's correct. I don't know what to tell you about the building situation.
Because that's not under your purview, that's the building inspector.
You know, there was a direct application to the Board of Health for approvals that never went through the building department or through us. They received them for the septic. So it's almost as if everything that was required to be done, except the building permit and the site plan, were done. So there's no Board of Health violation for the septic. I believe you have a permission to operate for the food.
yes.
There was something from a fire department about fire inspection or fire something.
Fire extinguishers that had been installed, by the way.
But it wasn't through, apparently there are two avenues to get a fire inspection. One is through the fire department and one's through the fire inspector. They went through the fire department, not the fire inspector. So there's a whole series of things that should have had building permits, should have had oversight, should have come through the board, should have come through the building department. Doesn't mean they haven't been done. So you can't violate them for not having the permit because it's in place. So it's not as easy as.
No, I know what you're saying, we have no record, because they didn't come through the planning board in the first place.
But we do know
they've
that
received
they,
the
that they
permits.
did come in for a site plan approval, and that approval expired. The conditions were never met. Their attorney applied to meet the conditions well after it had expired, and it was rejected, and told that they had to reapply for site plan.
This site precedes me and everybody else on the board except for Mr. Murphy, I believe.
No, precedes me.
There you are.
Wow.
So the
Black cloud.
the violations have existed for a while. I think I have a solution to propose, but first, any other comments, Mr. Stigna?
No, it's just that all the confusion is not to her benefit, it's not to our benefit, it's not to the town's benefit. And I know I really join with my colleagues in applauding you for doing trying to do everything exactly the right way so you can get this done. But let's make sure we're doing the right thing in the right order rather than have a mess come later on that can't be rectified. So I have difficulty approving this tonight.
What about if
I don't have a problem approving it tonight. I mean, I think we're being asked to approve the sign.
As a
That's
recommendation.
what we're being asked to recommend. And the law appears to be, if there is a violation on the building, then we're not able to do that. There is no violation on the building. I think we're going a little too far afield here. I agree that it's not right that the building doesn't have a C of O, but I don't think it's our role to deal with that tonight. And I think it's getting a little bit far afield from what our role is tonight. And I don't think we can go take every application that comes in here for any minor thing or any simple request such as a sign permit and go through all of the records and go through C of Os and whether something might be grandfathered, whether there is no requirement for a C of O. We can't be doing that with every
Just as a quick
application.
note, there is a violation on the building. It involves the current sign. The replacement of this sign will get rid of that violation.
Yeah, okay, so then that's
But
Taken care of.
there was another sign we were talking about earlier. I'm sitting here saying, which signs? This sign has to be reduced in size. Great, we're
Right.
going to do that. There's another sign that's going to go in. We don't have that yet.
And it's not, it's not
Not to
subject,
get a
it's
permit
not,
for that.
it's
We
not for
won't install
tonight.
that sign until we get approval.
Okay? And this is, we don't have the accurate information in front of us, as I see it, to make a recommendation.
Don't we have enough information to reject or approve this particular sign?
It appears to be, we have we know that it dimensionally needs to be reduced by 3 square feet, and we need to, in a resolution, increase the letter size because the applicant mistakenly thought that it was as of right to go to 13 inches. But again, that's just a matter of our finding that it looks appropriate for the size and the distance of the building. If there's a solution that's possible, could we authorize this, Ms. Moss, as a temporary sign, under a temporary sign permit, which would then give the applicant and the landlord 60 days to pursue the certificate of occupancy?
You don't have any say in the temporary sign.
That's what I thought. You get to issue that. Couldn't this be treated as a temporary sign that could then, temporary signs can become permanent.
I would hope so, because I would not want the cost of replacing
No,
that.
no.
That's right. See?
Yeah. And I don't think you're going to get a certificate of occupancy in the near future. And that's just from what I hear from, how long have you been waiting?
That would, would you consider, what, you're showing us something? Yes.
The freestanding sign that needs to be lowered,
Mhm.
one of these panels will come out, I don't know which one. This is the freestanding sign she's gonna cut down with a chainsaw. And this is the one that's on the vacant parcel.
Right.
That has now been relocated and will be removed.
Well,
So those are the violations that I have.
I'm hearing a lot of things from the board. 2 people, I believe, want to condition, if we make a recommendation, they want to condition this on you getting a CO, which doesn't get you a sign if you don't think it's ever going to happen. My proposal was to do a temporary sign so you could open it for business right now. The temporary sign permit only lasts for 2 months, 60 days. After that, you'd have to come back here anyway.
And have this whole conversation
And it's a
again.
violation after 60 days.
It's a violation, it's another
We're going to be in
violation.
violation now over
we
again,
don't wanna
something
do
that the
that.
landlord has an issue with. I mean, it puts me right back in the square one. I want to get it fixed now. I want to do the right thing now,
That's a good point.
Yeah.
you know?
The other issue is that Mr. Groninger, who's absent tonight, would have to recuse himself because his daughters, who sold you the property, and is his son-in-law, who's the site owner,
Right.
with all the violations. So if you want, we can schedule this for 2 weeks, and I can appoint an alternate. That would be Nancy Richards, and therefore you could then take another chance and see if we can get 4 votes to vote to approve. Because I'm not sure I hear that there's enough votes to approve tonight on this.
Why don't we do that? In the interim, I'll get the proper dimensions of the 3 feet, as well as I'll get a picture of what the other sign will look like, and so
That puts you-
I could get it all done in one shot, and then.
I
That
feel
puts
a lot
you
better.
beyond September 1st.
I know,
was your
which is,
target
it's
date.
hard because we were changing the name of September 1st,
But
and.
in the
and it's
interim,
gonna have to wait.
couldn't Ms. Moss offer, if you apply to her directly, you don't have to come through to us. So if you wanted to sign up before September 1st, you could treat this as a temporary sign?
I would just hate to do that, and then I'll get the board approval and have to take it down. I'd rather do the right thing, and I'll wait for the next meeting, It sucks, but.
May I apologize to you from the bottom of my heart and say thank you?
No problems. I want to do the right thing, and like I said, we're going to be here for a long time, and when I get the second location, I'm going to have to come back and talk to you.
Absolutely, yes.
I appreciate it, and, yes.
Ms. Polidor, if we were to move forward on, as a board, legally granting a sign permit knowingly there's no CO, how are we, or there's no violation?
There's no
So-
violation.
Well, again, the interpretation of that section is that it's a known violation, and,
Okay.
we just hearsay that there's no CO. We don't have an actual letter in the file saying that there is no CO that's been issued and that one is required. It doesn't predate the code, anything like that.
So as of right now, there's no known violation
Of that,
other than the signs?
correct. And that's what
Which will be remedied.
Okay, which changes my opinion on the case, so.
We may have enough to carry it right now.
We have enough to carry. Do you mind going, do you want to wait in the audience?
Absolutely.
And
Thank
can you go back, Ms. Moss, and we'll see you at the end of the, by the way, so much for my prediction this would be a short meeting. The next item on the agenda is Blown Away. I promise you we'll treat you more nicely.
Oh, another sign.
Sit down and state your name for the record.
I'm Jessica Watt.
And I understand this is a new business?
Yeah.
This is the applicant is seeking a sign permit recommendation for a hair salon
Yeah.
located at 417 Violet Avenue.
Correct.
And in this case, there's no violation on the site, and the sign is code compliant. You've worked with the zoning administrator to make a few changes. The female head and male head have been shrunk down.
Yeah.
So that made it sound strange. The images, the graphic symbols have been struck down to become code compliant. Who has this?
I do, and I've already made the changes.
They reduced them.
Okay.
Okay, Town of Hyde Park Planning Board Resolution recommending granting of sign permit for Blown Away, 417 Violet Avenue. Date August 21st, 2013, resolution number 13-32. Whereas, now therefore be it resolved that the planning board recommends approval of sign permit for Blown Away on the building proposed.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
See, welcome to Hyde Park. Let us see you open the business.
Yes, thank you so much.
And hope you're successful for years to come.
Yes.
Thank you.
Naples. They're right next to Naples, a touch of Naples.
Okay, the next item on the agenda, I say this, the next item on the agenda is Hyde Park Terrace Apartments, but do we have a resolution for this
I
one?
thought this was another one that we
Okay,
need the location.
we'll be knocking this to the next meeting. The next item on the agenda is Shock. The applicants, are they here? Do you want to come up? Do you want to tell us anything about the project?
It's looking really nice. Finally.
Glad to hear that. Just so the audience is aware, that this house, like many houses, is located in a statewide area of scenic significance and requires site plan review. But we normally waive things as soon as the zoning administrator recommends it because you're just renovating existing structure. And it's not visible from the Hudson River nor from any of the historic sites. Mills Mansion is also why you're in this state area, so designated. So we have the recommendation of the zoning administrator. Who has this file?
I have this file.
Thank you.
Date August 21st, 2013, resolution number 13-33. Whereas an application requesting a waiver of site plan has been made to the Town of Hyde Park Planning Board by Kurt Hughes for Sean and Vika Schock. Did I say it right?
Vika.
Vika. I'm sorry, Schock. Property owners of 14 East Elm Avenue in Statsburg. And whereas the application is to obtain approval for the rebuilding of a non-conforming structure front porch and a rear conforming porch on an existing single-family home in the Historic Overlay District, and whereas, now therefore be it resolved that the Town of Hyde Park Planning Board hereby waives site plan requirements for the file entitled Shock Front and Rear Porch Replacements regarding the specific request as submitted in the application and building permit application.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Good luck.
Thank
Thanks
you.
for your patience waiting through everything.
Thank you very much.
The next item on the agenda is River Ridge. The applicants are seeking a sign permit recommendation for a sign that's already up, but it is code compliant. Everyone had a chance to take a look at it?
Yes.
Yes.
We have a recommendation from the zoning administrator, and this is actually used for sales purposes. As everyone is aware, I hope, River Ridge will be making an application shortly to amend the site plan to show some changes to the clubhouse and sports court and swimming pool. This is separate from that, so it just allows a sign that's already up. Who has this resolution?
I do. Resolution recommending granting of sign permit, River Ridge LLC, resolution number 13-34, whereas, now therefore be it resolved that the planning board recommends the approval of the sign permit for River Ridge LLC on the building proposed for renovation.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
The motion carries unanimously. And, pardon me?
Rock ledge?
Right, that's what we're looking for is rock ledge. Did I miss this on the agenda?
No. It was never added to the agenda.
Oh, all right. Then for the audience's edification, Rockledge Plaza, which is located on Route 9G, it's actually on the Town of Hyde Park Facebook. It's being improved, the facades, it's already underway. In our approval resolution granted 2 weeks ago, we added a condition that 2 trees would be planted, and the locations were to be determined, were to be agreed upon by the zoning administrator and our planning board engineering consultant. After a site visit that occurred this week, it was determined that one of the trees, a London plane, or commonly known as sycamore, could not be planted in the site we recommended because there were overhead utility poles, and there's a shallow depth, there's not much soil there, so instead, the conference between the applicant's representatives and zoning administrator Moss and Mr. Sotero were that instead they would remove, instead of just removing one parking space and adding a tree, instead they would make a landscaped bed, include a smaller decorative tree, as well as some ornamental grasses or plants. The applicant requested ornamental grasses. Ms. Moss, who doesn't like ornamental grasses, just like me, sorry, recommended instead that we put in, that they add Phlox paniculata, and that the tree, we both agreed, would be the Prunus cerasifera, a flowering prune, just like we did. And I know Mr. Oliver likes those at Rondout, so we start to create the sense of place everywhere around town by using some of the same specimens. And the maximum height it hits will not interfere with any of the utility poles, so it won't have the ugly scoop out. So we prepared a resolution tonight because the applicant behind this kind of got the jump and started working on the site before the site plan was signed. So in order to have the site plan signed, we need to amend the condition to change it. Now, Victoria and I worked on this, and we have we can either put in the phlox or the flowering prune, the flowering prune and the phlox, or we can put in the phlox, we can put in the ornamental grasses. I put in Pennisetum rubrum, which is a red-leafed ornamental grass, fountain grass, so it would all be it would give Anne the color that she wants around town. So, and the Phlox paniculata, just so everyone knows, those are the tall, skinny with the big panicle at the top. They're in bloom right now. They start blooming as early as June. They come in white, pink and white, and a kind of bluish color. So it's up to the board as to which they'd rather see. Chris, do you have a preference, since you're kind of our go-to person?
Did you think about maybe adding a variation to get contrast in the color? Maybe some Hemlin fountain grasses with the rubrum?
Be nice.
Green and red, or maybe adding some
The Hemlock would be
Beatrice.
nice because it'd be nice colors in through there.
Beatrice for water absorption, or?
Do you want to we just, here's, add away.
Add away.
Is he reading that? Right.
Add away, and then I'll read it at the end.
Can I ask, was it a choice between phlox and a tree or
No,
or
the tree's going to
grasses?
be there.
Oh, okay.
He said ornamental grasses, he thought they were easy. And the thing about ornamental grasses, in case we still have an audience, is that they reseed freely, some of them. The Pennisetum rubrum does not. And when things start reseeding, they have a way of getting away from people.
Yep.
In addition, ornamental grasses have to be dug up and divided periodically, or at least divided, and then you either
Okay,
throw out the
okay,
clump.
yeah.
So there's a maintenance issue. The reason why Tad and I suggested phlox is because it actually is very easy to maintain. It reseeds, but it's not invasive, and it grows up into a tall plant. Then when it de-leaves, the actual plant just dies back on its own.
So is it a choice between phlox or these grasses?
Or we could have all of them. I mean, it doesn't really matter.
Oh, I see, okay.
We're trying to keep it simple because the applicant didn't seem that interested in landscaping in the first place. Yeah. So we're trying to keep it simple, and this is a tough area because there's not a lot of soil, if you recall. So we'll let Mr. Oliver kind of just throw in a few things.
Just phlox and Beatrice. I'm fine with no
Perfect.
ornamental grasses.
Okay, I will read this resolution.
Thank goodness.
Resolution to amend prior resolution granting site plan amendment approval, Rockledge Plaza, date August 21st, 2013, Resolution 18-13A. Whereas, there now be it resolved, the planning board hereby amends Resolution 18-13A, but leading condition 2 and replacing it with a new condition number 2 to read as follows. Revision of the site plan to eliminate parking spaces 1 and 23, and install in place of former space 23 a landscaped planting island with a purple leaf plum tree, Prunus cerasifera, and Phlox paniculata, with Leatris to install and form replace one, and to install and form replace one, a London Plain sycamore, Platanus acericifolia, and to remove the existing freestanding sign of the south end of the building. Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. Thank you, Mr. Murphy, for seconding, and thank you, board, and thank you, Mr. Oliver, for making an addition. And now, that concludes the agenda for the evening. Wait, let me sign everything I need to sign.
Discussion of the planning board's term.
We have to discuss short EAF forms, but in the meantime, we're waiting for, oh, great. We're waiting for Ms. Moss to come back with a resolution. Do you want to, Ms. Polidoro was helping her, so let's take a break.
Sounds good.
Media committee will be back in 5 minutes.
Thank you.
No, thank you. Thank you, Chris.
Yeah, that's good.
Did I sign River Ridge? Did I sign River Ridge?
Yes,
Yeah,
that was
you
this
just-
one.
just
Yep,
did it.
just did it.
Do you agree if there
I think that's the point. Yes.
John Lamar even comes.
And that's the way, it's, we can only go by what's on the record.
Oh, fine.
And the only thing that's on the
Thank you.
record are sign
If I have to, I'll just
which
There's no
she's fixing, and
because-
then really fixing, we're putting the final.
I mean, Rocky doesn't have a CO. You know how many places don't have a CO?
We did this in
Cranberry says no CO.
at the, at TNF Plaza where TNF Pizza is. All
That
their
was-
You never got a
signs,
CO?
yeah, all their signs are also in violation, and so when a new, one wanted to go in there, it's an internally lit sign, blah, blah, blah. But he's got plans to take it down and redo it in like 2015, and he
It
has.
is in yeah.
But there's no record of it, there's no violation on the record.
I could go ahead and open that up.
Correct.
So we
And-
can't
right.
use that.
Right, right. If there was, then we couldn't even, we couldn't.
Hold on.
Yeah, I think that's,
I'm running
Oh,
down
yeah.
file complaints over no CO.
right, right. I do too, but you can only go by what's on the record and, right. Now, she
They are
came
beyond
out
record.
and there was a stack of violations, including
I'll be right back.
CO and everything else. Yeah.
I feel there's like no way can we do that.
Well, it's hard, and unfortunately, we kind of have to talk through all this stuff, because it really is, there's so many details.
I would tell her stop paying the lease.
Well, see, the other part of it is she's got all the Department of Health is okay, she's got all the certificates with them, she's got all the certificates she needs with the agencies.
But if the landlord is actions interfering with carrying on a business, that'd be a violation of the lease.
Yes.
It's implied in the lease that the landlord has to do the
And
necessary
she thought,
to enable
she
her to
signed
carry
that
on her
lease
business.
thinking that everything was okay.
All she is, she wouldn't know. I mean,
And I'm gonna guess she doesn't, and I'm gonna guess she doesn't have the resources to hire a
well,
lawyer.
she wouldn't even know if you need a CO. I mean, the things are grandfathered where you don't have.
But for
Little messenger there.
For us to.
Hey, I've been meaning to ask you a question. Just really quickly. Oh, thank you. Chocolate, the chocolate that you brought. See that? See that meaning it was 80% cocoa? And it had no soy in it, which is impossible.
My market in Utah, there's also a market in Best, in the Mexican. Is it the Mexican chocolate?
I don't know, it was delicious.
You get the town board.
Oh, you must get a variety of chocolates. Okay. Yes, but it was, there was like 3 things back, and I took it home with me. And I read the ingredients, it doesn't have soy lecithin, they were chunks, they broke off the bar. It was delicious. I can't find it.
Just like a little rectangular one. There wasn't a big one.
Yep.
And what it is I was all the place and they had the little round things with Mexican chocolate.
Yep, it was around.
And then she said, oh, we have an 80% dark. You really like that. And we kept
And it
looking
had
and she
no
said, oh,
soy
it's
lecithin
this
in
one.
it,
Yeah.
because it's very, no, I'm just trying to avoid things that don't have to be in this, that for some reason, companies think that they have to add.
are just all things. Do you know the mine market? No. Well, the closest one for you, I think, would be Vassar. And I think, I'm trying to think, where's mine market by Vassar?
On College Avenue or on Raymond?
I wanna say it's on the main drag.
Yeah, that's Raymond, okay.
That's Raymond.
Yeah.
It's on Raymond.
I'll look it up.
Cause I know I've seen it.
Which originally, the rule that Victoria read.
Is it right on the
says
corner
that
there?
If there's a violation of record, you know. that-
Across from the Juliet?
I was under the, I was in
Yeah, so it's right on the corner.
Yes.
And there used to be a market there that wasn't so great.
Language that if there is
Is it great?
not a CO, it
had a
Like a little
violation.
teeny chain,
Good.
and they
You're
have a
right.
mixture of just
But they don't.
That makes it
So-
simple for us.
and some organic.
I'd rather ask.
We can't be
But they also have some
doing a search on everything
Yeah,
that's
yeah,
ever been
yeah,
done on this
something for
building
everyone.
from the time it was built.
Okay, okay.
Is the electrical in order? We want to sign, you got electrical inspection, health department.
No, I go for quality.
Is there mold?
I would rather spend
Do a mold inspection. Before you know it, nobody will come back.
No sides. Come inside with no
They're
sides.
just
You'll
gonna
have a
start
town
cutting
with
them down
no
with
sides.
chainsaws.
So, yeah, whenever they're like, and it just had that consistency that I love. It was like,
Yeah, it was good chocolate.
it was really good. It's like,
How's your daughter doing? She's enjoying the job?
I get cooked now. I don't.
They work cut of death over there.
Some of my other
Yeah.
favorites.
Yeah, they work cut of death. But she enjoyed, she
no, don't know that one either.
loves it, and, you know, it's always a question of maybe with some more money, she'd be a little happy. She's actually happy with the job, but they do work.
Which firm is she at?
She's with Crenshaw and Caniglia. Is that the
Oh,
right?
Kershaw.
Kershaw and Caniglia.
Yeah.
But she's a wannabe project manager. She's an assistant
I
project
don't, we don't eat tons
but she actually manages
I want it
projects,
to be,
even though she doesn't have to pay all the time.
Yeah, that's usually the way that it goes.
I imagine.
there's a staple in
And
the
she's
house.
very, very good at it.
And we said, you know what, when I was a little kid, that was a treat.
I don't bring ice cream home because when I go to Vermont, I go to like Vermont. So we have like sleeves and sleeves of ice cream. So I just lay down on ice cream.
She's a landscape architect.
Still a treat.
She doesn't know how to plant from a tree. I mean, her landscape architect all involves piers and lots.
I wish Bob was here to hear this thing.
That's why I didn't pursue like a landscape architect.
It hurts everywhere. I got him on my blog there, Robinson and up on Forest Drive doing business.
Great course, 5 years, and stayed. And it was a great, she got a great education.
Yeah.
And her husband works for the works for the state park.
That's what you were saying. She's at Norrie Point.
And he's the opposite. He's home at 4:01. Or 4:03 or
State
whatever.
benefits.
Benefit, well, he's on a trial basis, but
The pay's not the greatest, right?
the pay is terrible, but he got his foot, the idea was to get his foot in the door. He didn't have a job up here.
Yeah.
You know, he had a job in the city. Who wants to do that 5 days a week, you know, so.
Yeah.
So he's actually working for them as a part-timer. He doesn't have medical, but of course, my daughter has that.
We're ready to go back into
Team up
session.
with Bean Town.
And he only works 4 days a week. So, and he's getting fairly decent.
Media Committee, we're ready to come back into session.
The idea is to get to know people up here, you know.
And before we schedule a vote on the sign, I need to ask the rest of the board, it's only 8:15, but I thought this was going to be very quick. Do you want to move the discussion of the EAF forms to the next meeting, or do you want to just stay tonight and plow through it? It should take about 20 minutes.
I'm okay. I don't have to be anywhere.
I was gonna say, it still sounds like we'll be out before 9.
We will be.
I'm okay.
Okay, we're going to stay for the EAFs.
You're overjoyed.
Our land use junkies on the side.
Sure.
Okay, for the record, I am going to read, since we haven't had a chance to read it, I'm going to read Ms. Moss's letter of recommendation. Dear Mr. Dupree and board members, a signed permit application has been submitted for Clancy's Cafe and Creamery, formerly the Inside Scoop. The sign permit application is submitted does not quite meet the requirements for square footage. The request is for a 30 square foot sign. However, the existing sign was in violation for, among other things, square footage. The permitted square footage is 27 square feet for business. The applicant has agreed to reduce the sign area to be in compliance. The application represents a resolution of an outstanding violation issued against the current building sign is allowed to proceed. The building is set back 60 feet from the fog line at the entrance and qualifies for a 3-inch relaxation of the standard maximum letter height of 10 inches to 13 inches if the board finds it to be appropriate based on the speed of the road and other considerations. The applicant is requesting this relaxation. The applicant has also agreed to resolve another violation of displaying more than one neon sign inside the windows of the business. Although I've not discussed this with the applicant, the cutout ice cream cones in the building are considered signs and must be removed. They have been, according to the applicant. A tenant panel in the freestanding sign is desired, and if it is presented in a similar manner of design, I'd recommend the applicant be allowed to add the scale drawing to this application to install the code-compliant panel. However, you're not doing that tonight. Although the applicant is not the owner, she has removed the play area and relocated the temporary sign to the same parcel as the building and will remove it completely within 10 days. These signs are visible from 9G, thus requiring review and recommendation by the planning board. And the resolution. Resolution granting discretionary bonus to increase maximum size of letter pursuant to Town Code Section 108-24.2, Clancy's wall sign, August 21st, 2013. Resolution number to be determined tomorrow or in the next weeks. Whereas, now therefore be it resolved, the board makes the following findings with respect to the requested wall sign. The additional size of the symbols and letters is appropriate given the sign's distance from the road. The increase in size is appropriate due to the size of the building upon which the wall sign is being placed. Be it further resolved, the board hereby grants the applicant the requested sign bonus to permit a maximum letter height of 13 inches as shown on the plan set on the condition that the applicant reduce the total square footage of the sign by 3 square feet. Is there a second?
Second.
Any further discussion?
This is only for the wall sign. The applicant will still need to return for the monument.
For the monument sign. Ms. Knapp, do you want to call the roll? I know you hate doing that, sorry.
Who are we?
Mr. Marsigliano?
Aye.
Mr.
Aye.
Oliver?
Aye.
And Ms. Dexter?
Aye.
Mr. Murphy?
Nay, I think it's a very, very dangerous precedent.
And Mr. Signa?
Nay.
And Chairman Dupree?
Aye. The motion carries on a 4-2 motion, and I appreciate both of my colleagues stating the reasons for why they said nay, and I do agree with them. I just think that this circumstance is very difficult for me to vote nay when I feel like we're penalizing someone who, I mean, there is a buyer beware. You know, it would have been nice that you understood any of this in advance, but the transaction has already been made, and I'd hate to penalize you, a new business coming into Hyde Park. So thank you for your forbearance, your patience. As I said, your moxie and spirit, too. I like the idea of you up there with a chainsaw, getting it down. And it looks like we'll be seeing you coming back at some point for the tenant panel sign when it's ready. Okay.
What are you going to do with the ice cream cones that you took down? Are you going to
They're free.
Honestly, I have them in the back, and literally, I'll give them to you.
No, I'm just thinking, oh, they're ugly, never mind. I was going to say,
It's like yellow and orange.
you can't paint them and
Can't
make
be
them
a-
part of the interior.
Oh, no.
Okay, never mind. Never mind.
Sophisticated look, so.
Thank you. Thank you. Anyway, welcome, and we'll
Thank
see you in
you.
2 weeks. In the meantime, happy Labor Day.
All right, have a good day.
Okay, Ms. Polidoro has requested that we have a conference on the new short environmental assessment forms. And do you want us to come down to put another chair there, to the table there, and sit around round table?
Put the tables together so we
Yep.
can just work through them.
Okay.
Sure.
And I also have the long forms. There's just not enough time to go through both thoroughly. Should we keep the microphones? Are we still going to be televised?
Yes,
Okay.
we will need our microphones. Okay, yep.
Oh, thank you. It's, there were points, but I didn't think there was a lack of CO violation because, yeah, and this, like I said, removes the violation from the building itself, so.
We're not talking, just Victoria. You can swing this one around to pretty much anybody.
Does it matter where we are? It doesn't.
We'll just swing this thing around. I'll show it, Victoria. All right. Thank you. You guys are in color?
Am I permitted to sit here?
Yes.
No, as soon as we get
I
it.
think we're going to sit down here so we can
It's
speak,
okay.
we need to use the microphones and the television.
Oh, he's fidgeting.
I'm handing out forms.
Thank you.
Just as a reminder, if we're going to speak, please pass the microphone because we're still being televised, and if we don't use the microphones, people can't, if anybody remotely is interested in watching this, they won't be able to hear.
You also have this.
Thank you.
Now I'm handing out part one of the long form. And the outlines. One of the long form.
20 minutes you've got, don't forget 20 minutes.
20 minutes. This is part 2 of the long form. Okay, we're just gonna do a preliminary review.
Victoria. Victoria.
Yeah.
Are these the same?
If anybody on this side of the table wants to speak,
Yeah.
okay, there's a poll and it's already on.
Okay. And then I have part 3
Do I have this one? No, this is no.
of the long form.
Part 1, part 2. Appendix B.
So
We can't even turn the pages.
you guys aren't actually getting out of here at 9 o'clock, but here's a map that we're going to work from.
Take one and pass it down. Take
Yep.
one and pass it down.
And here's a map we'll work from, maybe.
Got 2 of those. I got 2 of those. I can't have
Well, okay, we're going to start with the short form.
Jan,
Yeah.
Define the word short in quotes.
It's all relative. Something my fancy law degree has taught me.
Then the long.
Okay, so the short one is the one that's entitled short on the top. Just a little bit of background. The short form in seeker hasn't been updated since 1987. And as you know, as in its current iteration, it does not provide the board with a lot of information. The whole purpose of seeker is to inject environmental considerations into an agency's decision-making process. Really? The purpose of seeker is to inject environmental considerations into an agency's decision-making process. As a reminder, your determination is only as good as the information that you've relied upon to make it. And so in that sense, these new forms are going to be a benefit.
Form's gotten longer.
The short form has doubled in size.
Short form ain't what it used to be.
No, but neither is the long form, so. Compliance with seeker is critical to protecting all of your decisions. You work a lot of, you put a lot of hours into your projects and into your decisions, and so you want to make sure that they're protected and not going to be overturned by the court. The vast majority of legal challenges to a planning board decision has to do with seeker. And so again, these forms are going to provide you with a lot more information and give you a stronger basis for all of your decisions. Hopefully we will have time to do a quick workshop session to actually get you to work through the short form. I don't have a lot of time right now to go through the forms. I spoke with Nola Hooper at Dutchess County Planning. They're currently preparing 2 workshops on seeker forms. Their workshop on the short form will be 3 hours.
That's great.
It'll be sometime in October. So I wanted to give you the preliminary review because we're going to have to start implementing these forms before we start getting training materials on them. So the whole goal of these new forms, or one of the main goals, is to actually make them more user-friendly. And in that respect, DEC is putting together a workbook online that you would be able to click and fill in information similar to TurboTax. The workbook isn't ready though, and so we're going to be doing it manually for, ever. Yes, the near future. So, if everyone has the short form in front of them, the new forms front load information. It really requires an applicant to work through their project before they come to the board and submit this. So we can expect applicants to come in with more fully engineered projects just to be able to answer some of these questions. The short EAF now uses the same method of analysis as the full EAF. And in that, I mean that we're going to have to do a part 2 and with an ask and answer question section.
Just as Chris did tonight in the part 2, but that was for a long form. But this is what's one of the biggest differences is that the new short form has a part 2 to it. It didn't have that before. Well, one page.
Right. These are more detailed questions. Another thing to note is that the impacts have changed. The formula used to be small to moderate and then moderate to large, and only when you checked moderate to large did you have to prepare a part 3 on potential impacts. They've now changed it to no or small, and then moderate to large now requires you to fill out the written part 3 where you assess the impacts. So that's it sounds like a semantics. It sounds like it's just semantics, but it is going to have repercussions because if something is not small, we will now be moving on to a part 3.
Excuse me, are there any definitions or criteria for no, small, moderate, large?
Yes, I knew someone would ask that question. So, seeker, as you know, it gives the planning board a lot of discretion because a lot of these can't be quantified in definitions.
I hate to see you as a contortionist.
Thank you.
Where are my notes? So in order to determine impact, you have to consider magnitude, duration, and likelihood, and that's also defined as probability. And so you're always balancing and weighing, if it happens, will it be a big impact? Will it be temporary, such as construction for 1 week, or will it be permanent, that's going to happen daily during business hours? So there's going to be a lot of weighing. The same as now. The standard hasn't changed.
Those are the same standards we use now. So when we say, will there be air, noise, or odors, usually people check yes, minor, because during construction there's going to be noise, there's going to be odors coming out from porta potties, whatever, and there's debris if they're blasting, whatever. That's just those, but they're temporary in nature. And you would then evaluate, for example, say Mavis, we know that would have a more permanent, a longer lasting noise impact. So the standards were always the same. It's just they've kind of expanded how you have to apply the standards and what to.
As a point of comparison, if we used a tire installation facility as compared to a standard automotive repair shop, which would occasionally be using the devices, would the automotive repair shop be considered moderate and the tire installation facility considered large?
So we can't answer that question in a vacuum, and as you go through the forms, you'll see a lot of that depends on what's the character of the neighborhood, are there existing buffers for the noise? It's not just the action, it's the surroundings. And so these forms, actually, they don't just ask the first question, they ask all the follow-up questions that boards generally ask. So applicants will have to fill that information out on paper. So
I hear you, and I don't want to prolong this more than 20 minutes. But I'm looking at this and I'm saying, this is board approved. We are the lead agency for a particular situation. 4 of us would say, that's moderate. 3 of us would say, that's small. So the 4s would carry. Is that what
Yep.
we would have to do? Got you.
Yeah.
And whatever criteria an individual would use would be that. Okay, thank you.
4s would carry, majority rules. Yes. Okay. So part 1 of the form now looks more like a full EAF.
Is there an appeal from that?
Yeah, the appeal, in all cases, if an applicant needs to challenge the decision of the planning board, it's called an Article 78 proceeding.
Yeah, what about if we decide it's small? Is there an appeal of the DEC or someone to argue that point?
Only an aggrieved party can appeal, so if there was a neighbor, perhaps, that disagreed, they could challenge that decision, much like a current matter before the board right now,
Yes.
where you found that there was a small impact and it's being challenged by an Article 78.
That's the whole point of circulating for lead and having everybody consent, is that they're relying on your judgment.
Okay.
Sorry.
So the short EAF is mandatory for all unlisted actions. Generally in Hyde Park, we've been asking applicants to complete a full application on bigger projects because the short form didn't give us enough information. That should change with the implementation of the new forms because they do provide a little more information. Some of the questions: does the action involve the legislative adoption of a plan, local law, administrative rule? If one benefit to a municipality is that if you're only amending a zoning law, it's actually letting you skip a majority of the form, whereas before you had to go through and fill out all of it. That makes a lot of sense because the law in and of itself isn't going to result in land disturbance. So that is a benefit to towns because these are costly to prepare. Let's see, some new questions on this form. It asks all of the same old questions, but then some of the new ones. Are any pedestrian accommodations or bicycle routes available on or near the site of the proposed action?
8C.
Yes, thank you.
8B and 8C are both new.
This is, do you want to talk about this stuff?
I want to ask a question.
Does the short form, does this change if you're, say, a type 1 action? Do you automatically bounce to a full EAF? Still? So the regs are still?
Yes, the regs. The seeker regulations, which are the regulations which define what is unlisted, what's type 1 and what's type 2, have not been changed yet, although they are in the process of being updated, and we can expect some changes in the near future, but the wheels of government move slowly, so it could be a few years. Another question that's new on this EAF: does the project meet or exceed state energy code requirements? That's giving this board the opportunity to bring in discussions about low impact toilets and solar panels and rain gardens, anything like that that we generally didn't look at under seeker before.
If you recall, this is a modification of it. The similar question just said, is there existing utilities to provide the service?
Right.
If so, can it handle it? Yes. Now it actually specifically references the state energy code requirements. So this is new. And if you recall, when we did approve the CIA or the hotel on the CIA property, the response we got back from DEC was to try to get the applicant to involve greener technologies, if you remember. This is what DEC is really trying to get us to focus on more, is how to lower carbon footprints for new structures without necessarily trying to push them into LEED certification or something. So.
Right.
Is there a protocol, for instance, in what scale do we treat everybody the same? In other words, if they have 10 toilets, do we make them all energy efficient? In other words, at what point do we exercise this discretion that
Well, so
we're
right now,
talking
these
about?
questions are just asking for that information. They're just giving you the facts of this proposal. And so each proposal is going to be different. And if a proposal comes in that's completely energy efficient, except that they're using regular old pavement, maybe you're not gonna push them towards pervious. But if it comes in and they haven't provided any green alternatives, maybe then the board will want them to go another way to minimize their impacts. So this is not making you make a particular decision, it's just giving you more facts on which to base your decision. I mean, these are questions that we often ask or have been asked by board members, but we don't always get answers from the applicants. So they'll be required to give us these answers early on. Hopefully, they'll consider these in formulating their plans, but I don't want to get too ambitious. There's also questions about whether or not this has been the site of a hazardous waste facility, whether it's near an active or closed solid waste management facility, subject of ongoing remediation. So we've actually had projects in the near past which, you know, would have had to answer these questions. So those are the biggest changes on the short EAF.
They've also used in question number 17 language that I understand because I've been trained, but it's one of the things that kind of infuriates me because it doesn't. Well, the proposed action creates stormwater discharge either from point or non-point sources. If I start talking to the average Joe Q public and say talking about non-point source pollution, their eyes glaze over.
That's true.
They should have used language that is more easily understood by regular individuals. Let's put it that way.
Well, so-
lay people, in my opinion, at least.
Well, that's true, and I do agree, but the workbooks that they're putting together, this is the workbook for the long, and I printed 4 pages per page, double-paged, and it's still about 80 pages long.
That's the draft.
It's 300 pages total. So when an applicant goes through the workbook, it goes question by question.
Talk about your monopoly.
Well, it actually, though, it does address some of these concerns. It says, you know, a wetland is defined as such and such. Its importance is such and such. Please identify X, Y, and Z. And so theoretically, a layperson would be able to go to a particular question, look at the workbook, and then answer. That's the idea.
I'm really referring to examples of where we had tonight, someone come in who is representing themselves. If you have consultants, they're going to know how to fill this out, just like they do right now. And, you know, I can define non-point and point source pollution for everybody. But if a layperson sees this, to try to go back through here and dig through it, it just seems like it's going to be very arduous for the mom and pops is what I'm talking about. That's what I meant.
agree. Again, though, the idea is that they'll fill it out online, and as they fill it out, these little message boxes will pop up. If that ever comes to be, it would be helpful.
Does it define point source and non-point source?
I believe it does in here.
And we only have 20 minutes.
So after you go through your Part 2 impact assessment, there's room on this form. If there was a night that you just wanted to do it on your own, there's space here to fill in the reasons why you would adopt a negative declaration, and then you would authorize your chairman to sign the form. So this is very similar to what you're already doing. So that's the short EAF. I'd like to go to the
In general, and real quickly, wouldn't we want to, instead of handwriting this in there, wouldn't we want it to just attach the resolution that we prepared because we're able to do that?
Yeah, we do.
With our findings?
We do. I'm just saying there's space, and again, Liz and I don't consult on all applications.
That's true.
I'm just letting you know what you can do if I'm ever sick.
Don't we have the runner-up who can substitute when you're ill?
Okay, so now I'll move on to the full EAF, which I'm going to go through pretty quickly as well. Okay, the full EAF, as you can see, has multiple parts. Really, you don't have it?
I've got part
Okay,
1,
here you
2, and 3.
I mean, I have it, but here we go.
Here, take it. Right here.
Why aren't you working in the dark?
Okay. The full EAF has been modified. One of the best things about it, I think, is that they've moved the neg deck from the front all the way to the end, so people don't mistakenly sign it, as happens all the time. It really happens a lot. They've gone through and they've clarified a lot of things. like, for example, under funding, they really want you to include the county if it's an IDA deal. They want you to include any agency that might be loaning them money, giving them tax relief, financial assistance. Under B on page 2. So that's always been the case, but they're just making it a little bit more user-friendly by reminding you. On page 2, in part C1 again, they give you the opt-out if it's only a zoning change or a local law. You can skip a majority of the form. On page 3, there are a few questions about zoning and existing comprehensive plans. And according to the workbook, they actually expect applicants to come in and review all plans on file, the comprehensive plan, any open space plans, recreation plans, before filling this out.
No, I'm just saying on file is the operative word, because having worked in a lot of different municipalities, a lot of it is hard to find or hard to find online. It's not posted on your website, or it's so old that a scan wouldn't fit, that kind of thing. So I think you guys are pretty savvy that way.
Right? Business-friendly New York, the new one?
It's business-friendly to me.
All right, one point I'd like to make on that is that the town actually has a series of recreational trails that it was adopted as a plan. We're all supposed to be familiar with that, and I don't think any of us really are. In addition, what was adopted has changed because the portion that would go through the CIA parcel is where dormitories are sitting now. But this is something that would be good because when discussing River Ridge, it was pointed out by our recreation director, Kathleen Davis, that originally on the approval, the recreational trail was shown, and then somehow that data layer has been dropped. So when I emailed Mr. Stein to say, as part of when you make the application, we're going to be looking for you to go back to an earlier approval to find out where the trail's supposed to be, because Ms. Davis said that there should be sidewalks, and we don't have sidewalks shown on the site plan right now. So in addition, I think that some of the sidewalks would be where there's parking that we've already approved. So this is something that would actually benefit us, but you still, as the planning board, need to know what the plans are that they're supposed to have looked through in the first place.
Right.
In other words, if they don't find the recreation plan, if we don't point it out to them, they're not going to do it. So,
I mean, we may want to put a shelf together in one of the rooms that has all of the pertinent plans, and then planning board members can come in and look at them, the public can come in and look at them.
Yeah, right.
We'd have to dig them all up, but.
Well,
We need to build a room.
We have a library across, we do have a municipal library across the street. It seemed like not a bad function.
Point. Often, we haven't gone through a DEIS process, which is the full process, but those do go to libraries. So it would make sense to put other plans at libraries as well. So just for example, the workbook for question C4 says, answering this question, start with local municipal sources. These may be lists, tables, maps included in the municipal comprehensive plan or other plans that you have already gathered and evaluated for seeker. So, you know, I don't know if anyone's going to read these, but again, if they don't fill out the right information, we can tell them to go and look at these plans in order to fill it out the form correctly. It asks on page 3 also some very specific questions about subdivisions now. They don't just want to know, is it a subdivision? They want to know, is it a cluster subdivision or is it conventional? And there's even pictures of cluster and conventional in the workbook for lay people that don't understand.
Yes.
They do.
it's conservation.
Well, they use both. That's good.
What's a subdivision?
We used to get them.
It's all right, Ken, you're
We used to get them all.
You never did.
For question, where am I? D1F on page 4. It asks for not just number of units, but they want to know the type of each unit. This is, and phases. This is information that we used to get in a DEIS. So again, a lot of project planning up front. On question H, does proposed action include construction or other activities that will result in impoundment of any liquid, such as creation of a water supply, reservoir, pond, lake, waste lagoon, or other storage? there's a very similar question on the existing full EAF, but the workbook now tells us that even a single well needs to be included. Any stormwater detention basins or stormwater detention ponds need to be included in this. It does say a private water supply such as a well. And it, you know, it might not be enough just to say that you're going to put a well in. You might now have to ask, is there sufficient water?
Which question was that?
That's question H on page 4. And so again, these are still things, the workbooks aren't finalized yet. They're still accepting comments on them. But as I went through the workbook, I just wanted to point out, it did seem to include a single well. The same when it comes to stormwater, no, not stormwater, wastewater. It's on another question, but that also likely includes a single SDS system. Likely. Workbooks have not been finalized. Question D on page 4. We don't just ask about excavation or dredging. You want to know how much material is going to be removed, over what duration of time. How are you disposing of the material, and what's the nature or characteristics of this material? Are you just taking out used gravel, or are you taking out?
No, I'm going to question on that. If it says how much material, so we have a hard time, even in the DEIS process, making people say, this is how, quantify how much they're going to do. They never supply econometric data that should use to support it. They just throw out a number. This is one of, I mean, I don't want to talk about a specific project, but there's a subdivision that's next to Chairwoman Donahue's property proposal that, you know, they were altering ridge lines, et cetera, and they never really gave us any numbers as to quantify. So, I mean, my question here is how are we going to know, do we challenge them to say, what are your sources for the information?
Yes.
Just like we did with the GPD for the wastewater treatment from the assisted living facility?
Applicants
That's going to
should
really increase.
Yeah. The workbook says that applicants should work with their engineering or design professionals
There we go.
to calculate,
They're forcing you into professional help.
well, to calculate the total area to be dredged or excavated over the entire time of the project. Normally, though, you don't have a dredging project without consultants. I mean, that's a
dredging
larger
project,
scale.
Yeah. But, I mean,
And cut and fill is a fairly
if you
standard
don't ha-
calculation.
If you haven't dredged,
if you do
you don't
your-
know where the water line
Do
is
your
either.
topography.
From an engineer's point of view, you're not going to want to run cut and fill calculations until you have a finalized
Plan.
project.
going to be able to do that now,
that's what I was
saying.
Yeah, so you're going to be doing it twice.
Yeah, but that's the, go ahead.
When we had one proposal that showed up in the very last stages as 3.5 million cubic yards of material being removed, it was a shocker. And that's got to be some kind of an impact.
Yes, it is.
And they must know that up front. They must know, is it going to be economically feasible to remove that much? Or are we planning on doing a mine in advance of the development?
Well, it wouldn't be the first people to put that in the equation. In other words, if you have a site and you can sell a lot of fill, but back in the day when you could sell fill, you know, well, not as much like you could, but, I mean, that was a factor. It was a factor.
Okay, so I'm actually just going to rush through some of these other questions, just point out the highlights, and then we'll work on something else.
Rush criteria is good.
Well, it's getting late. This is going quickly. It is, right?
Oh, yeah.
Again, with wetlands, it doesn't just apply to state, federal. They want unclassified wetlands listed as well. And they don't just want to know, will there be disturbance? They want to know area of vegetation proposed to be removed, expected acreage of aquatic vegetation remaining after project completion, purpose of the removal, proposed method of removal, how are you getting in there, how are you taking these out? So again, a lot more information.
What page are we on there?
That's page 5, the top of page 5.
Okay.
We'll skip some of that. In the stormwater section on page 6, where we talk about stormwater, there's a lot of information. It also asks, does proposed plan minimize impervious surfaces use pervious materials, or collect and reuse stormwater. So there's an opportunity there for applicants to call out all of their low-impact techniques and for you to really know that they haven't included any. Some of these questions regarding air permits, we're still never gonna deal with, probably. Methane, unless there's a fertilizer plant, composting facility. These are things that are not likely to come up in Hyde Park. On page 7, I found this interesting. Will the proposed action result in a substantial increase in traffic above present levels or generate substantial new demand for transportation facilities or services? So the workbook actually has put together a list of what they consider substantial, what would be a substantial impact, and I found it interesting because it takes a lot of residential development out of the realm of a seeker impact for traffic. A substantial impact on traffic, they consider 95 units of single-family homes, which for a town like Hyde Park is pretty high. But
Not under cumulative impacts.
well,
Shutter Ridge, Rolling Ridge, and.
right, not cumulatively.
We had about 90 houses in through there.
Yeah.
Right.
Only cumulative, though.
Yeah,
Right, but I'm
some
just saying on its own, a 12 lot project isn't going to have a substantial seeker impact, but it still might have a traffic impact through site plan review or subdivision. So you're not losing that opportunity. It just might not kick it into the realm of a full EIS.
They're giving that arbitrary number without any idea of condition of the roads or what's leading into the project. Doesn't seem to me like that's
Well, these are just suggestions. and-
within the realm of reason there.
Right. I mean, I thought the number was a little high. I was surprised. But again, site-specific situation would always trump this. Gas station with convenience store, 7 fueling positions. Anything above that, they consider a high impact. And fast food restaurant with drive-in, 3,000 square feet. Oh, I'm in the workbook.
Oh.
I'm reading to you.
Oh, no, thank you.
So I just wanted to let you know that we may have to change the way we consider traffic impacts moving forward.
One of the things that, when Victoria discussed this, one of the things that we need to sort of do once this is all available is we need to ourselves go through and pretend we're filling out something using the workbook. That's something we will be able to know when we receive something. If they just start putting NA, if we go to the workbook and say, no, this is applicable, then we'll know they've done something wrong. So it's just a chance for us to get familiar with the form, but also the workbook to know how they should be filled out.
But that assumes you know the answer. So in some of these situations, the numbers, if the numbers aren't automatically clear, we're not going to know whether they're correct or not.
But you'll at least be able to see whether, if they just summarily said no, and you look and say, well, maybe you should have changed your answer there.
But technically, if you have the electronic thing set up, you can open a form and check it. I mean, this whole format is very similar to New York City CEQR forms, and they're very user-friendly once you get used to them. You have to know, a few things.
We'll
but
see if the state can pull this off, though. So, page 8, some things near and dear to Hyde Park's heart. Will the proposed action produce noise that will exceed existing ambient noise levels? They want details, including sources, time, day, and duration of the noise. They want to know whether it'll remove existing natural barriers that could act as a noise barrier or screen. Regarding outdoor lighting, source, location, height of fixtures, direction, aim, proximity to nearest occupied structure. Will the action remove existing natural barriers that could act as a light barrier or screen? So they're really delving into site plan and granular site plan issues.
They'll need to know before they fill this out. They'll need to know where their lights are going to be. That's a level of detail that we don't often see at the very beginning. We have to request it. So, I mean, in some ways, these are better for us because we'll have sort of a fully formed project. But there's a lot of give and take between the planning board and applicants now, and I see that might be hindered because if they come forth with fully, Andy's nodding, if you spent the money on fully engineered plans, you're not going to want to compromise.
Right.
So I think that we'll probably need to have more pre-application meetings with the entire board. just like with Quick Check doing it, we need to have more of that before they proceed too far, because there's no other way to make it work, the back and forth, to collaborate.
Well, so I'm going to skip the rest of the form and just go to the takeaways, because, you know, everyone can read through these on their own. The questions are very interesting. The workbook's available online. Short.
Tell people how to get to the workbook online?
I can send everyone the link. It's on the DEC website. If you go by letter, you can find it under S for
It's
SECRA.
harder to find, though.
Actually, if you just Google SECRA revised model, if you just Google SECRA revised model EAF, you'll get this web page. Here, I'll leave this web.
I'll email it to Donna.
Yeah, that's easier. Much easier.
So the short EAF is now more useful. Hopefully on plain vanilla unlisted actions, we won't need to move to the full EAF. One thing this board might want to consider doing is amending or adopting its own type 2 list for the town of Hyde Park. Such a list would not be binding on other agencies, but in a lot of cases, other agencies aren't involved, such as, you know, Department of Health. There's really a ministerial approval in many cases. So we could make small light line changes or certain small site plan applications, type 2 actions in Hyde Park, so that we don't have to bother with the full EAF or the short EAF. It's just a question. You would need to think about what kind of actions could be exempt from seeker. But you do have that available. You do have that option. You can expect a lot of pushback from applicants in the beginning, as these new forms are costly and more time consuming, especially since the workbook's not yet ready and fillable. And applicants need to have a good deal of work done before they come in with the application. As the chairman suggested, more pre-application meetings before they spend time and money and really dig their heels in the ground with a plan that they're committed to. So you may want to consider.
Way to have those with the full planning board? Yeah,
Mhm.
we discussed that.
That's what I was going to say. When they're first trying to just discuss something and propose it, I usually just meet with people, you know, a couple of planning board members, and then we take it to where we think we get to, it's ready to come to the board. But we have the option, or the applicants have the option of meeting with the entire board. All we need to do is, we need to pass a protocol, I think, such that if we're going to do that, then if they're meeting with the full board, our code is a little squishy about whether they should supply escrow. And in truth, if they don't supply escrow, they'd just be getting the 7 of us. And without the benefit of the consultants working along with that, I don't think it's worth that much. So could we adopt a protocol clarifying it, that escrow needs to be established for? Okay.
We would have to discuss whether it should be a local law at the town level or just a protocol for the planning board approved by the town board. But yes, that's definitely something that you could do.
Let's discuss that.
Couldn't we put it off? In other words, most projects would go forward, and at that time, they would put up the money. Couldn't we absorb, well, I hate to say this, but couldn't we absorb the 1 or 2 or 3 that don't go forward without forcing every application to start putting escrow up?
One alternative, instead of, right now, the applicants pay for the consultant's time at meetings. So when we're sitting in the chairs, the applicants are paying for that. An alternative, which, you know, may not be possible in this economy, would be to have the applicants come on retainer so that they're here for the meeting no matter what. So whether an application is pre-application or post-application, the consultants are there and able to provide comments without charging.
No, I'm saying we're proposing a pre-application meeting, an informal pre-application meeting, but now we're setting formalities that make it into that make it difficult for people to do what we
Right.
want them to do informally.
Well, you don't need to have consultants there. It's completely optional.
Yeah, but we think that it's necessary.
Particularly the engineer. For some of what we're talking about, the engineers would be very helpful. I think the planner and the attorney are also kind of critical for these. Because if they're really looking for us to say, is this a go? And what they're usually looking for is for us to identify any problems ahead, any road bumps. We're all fairly experienced now on the board, But it really helps to have the professionals, because Pete sees
Yeah.
things that I don't see. I'm not an engineer. And Andy, they both see things that I don't see. I'm not trained that way. I don't have that
What if-
background.
Could we have a pre-application fee?
There-
This way you wouldn't have to start escrowing
There
different
is.
amounts.
One of the problems is that the way escrow works, and Victoria can correct me on this, because or not correct me, clarify, there's a variety of different opinions on escrow charges. There are there's some attorneys and judges who felt that anything that's project-specific should not be borne by regular taxpayers. So when someone comes in the project, you, me, we all shouldn't be paying for these people's time to sit there,
Totally agree.
because it's project-specific.
Sure.
So that's why escrow is there in the first place, because it's supposed to be what's reasonable, and kind of above, the charges above what's just normal routine.
That could be done at the application phase. We're talking about the pre-application phase, and I'm wondering if we could simplify. We want to do a pre-application phase, but yet now we're starting to set all kinds of formalities and requirements on that, and more than we're trying to do an informal thing that would allow people to determine if their project is a go or not without having to go through all the formalities, and now it's putting formalities on it.
So
That's all I'm saying.
there's a couple of things that come to mind. One is, I don't know that you can back charge your time to something that happened before the application is made and escrow is deposited. That's one thing. And a second thing would be, now I've lost my train of thought.
Well, I mean, we can continue this conversation.
Okay.
I just wanted everyone to be aware that the board may want to have some changes in procedure if the new forms are causing applicants to come in with fully engineered plans and they don't want to make any changes. So we can see how it works for a little bit too. And
But it seems to me, though, that we're not operating in a vacuum here, that this is going to happen to every single planning board in New York State. And, it would be nice to kind of have some kind of, guidelines to work from that towns can implement without becoming yet another unfunded mandate, from New York State. But if they're doing all of this and it is to everybody's advantage to do stuff prior to even getting here, then what is New York State doing to help the local townships kind of back up and get these things more successful at the very beginning?
all I can tell you is that I can't even get New York State to return my phone calls on whether or not they're going to be pushing back the effective date of the forms.
That's one of the things that,
But
And the effective date means that any application we see that's posted after October 7th should,
Actually, if it comes in now in September, we'll be doing a secret determination in October.
so it's when we do the determination, not when they apply.
Correct. And, go ahead.
any pending applications that have been on file for even a year or so are going to have to submit updated forms if there's no seeker.
The other thing I wanted to point out, Ann made a good comment about we won't be in isolation, but one of the things I think frustrates potential investors to coming into Hyde Park is, and this is unlike Red Hook, Rhinebeck, and Poughkeepsie City and Town, we're the fourth largest town in the county and we're the largest with no commercial sewerage. So we have an additional burden, meaning that anything that's done here requires a little bit more engineering work in advance and more engineering review, because you don't just tie into an existing sewer system where you can say, yes, I've got the capacity, or no, I don't. And that really does complicate factors here. I mean, in more ways than I've learned, in more ways than I would have imagined, because once you start getting engineering design, I mean, part of what I'm thinking is that the costs for people to come and do business is going to be higher, that paying escrow probably won't make a difference, because that's like an eyelash compared to how much they're going to have to spend to really get these projects so they can answer all the questions really thoroughly. And yet, if we could work with them so that they don't have to do everything thoroughly, so they don't have to fill this out first and can come out and meet with us in a pre-app meeting. Again, I don't think the escrow charge, because it can be $500 to $1,000, a person or a consultant. That isn't that much to see. I'm going to save, much more later on because I realize this isn't feasible for the town, the location, whatever. That's what I'm thinking.
you know what, the thing about the EAF, it's gonna force the issue, the difference between somebody designing a project trying to max out under your zoning bulk, because that's what they're gonna do, and then we push back and say, no, 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 you know, reduce your parking, increase your, you know, pervious, et cetera. Having to go through even the short EAF is gonna force them to start dealing with that before they're even approaching trying to get close to your max. So that's gonna be a good effect in the long run, but
I mean,
frustrating.
I don't think they're bad forms, they're just more burdensome. I forgot to point out on part 2, when Chris reviewed part 2 tonight, there was a question and then everyone said yes or no. The new forms actually key the question to a particular question on the long form. So it says, you know, the proposed action may result in increased erosion. And if you don't know the answer, you go to DE, D2E, or D2Q. You can look at what they filled in. So when we're filling them out, we're not just saying yes or no, maybe. It makes it a little bit more user-friendly. So I think that's a plus. And again, it keeps the no or small and moderate to large. So those are the forms. Does anyone have any questions on how the forms work or form specifics? I actually thought, and if we don't have time, that's fine. I provided everyone with a mock site plan, and I have some mock EAFs in case you wanted to review them and take a shot at filling out your own EAF. Now, this was completed by an applicant, so it might not be 100% correct. But you can work in pairs if you want to do this now. If not, we can do it another time.
No, why don't we do this as homework and then have a follow-up meeting? I think everyone needs to read these. Ed and I were actually at a conference a year ago, do you remember, at the Wallace Center from the New York Planning Federation, the state? And they showed us just the new Part 1, and that was before they took them back and revised them because they were supposed to be adopted. They didn't even have Part 2 ready. They didn't have any of this or Part 3. So for us, for me, I need to go through these and then have a chance to go back and look at what you're supposed to be going back to. And if everyone wants to try, we'd be filling out a short form on this one.
I only did the short form at this point.
Could you send that to us, like, electronically?
Yeah, sure. I don't know if I can scan. I guess I can scan.
No,
this.
just
Did
the.
everyone get a map?
Yes, we all got maps. It was just this.
We have enough of these to go around?
You know what? I'll make another copy. Yeah.
You don't need them.
Fala office suites.
So there's, you know, if you review it, you can look at the plan and then draft your own
Thank
neg
you.
deck. And
No.
I think it might be good practice for everyone.
There are more of these if somebody.
And
we have
if
those.
anybody wants to meet and do it, you know, in a group, as long as we don't meet with more than 3, we can do them collectively. But
It actually, because
it's a training
It's not a
session, we
real-
could do
it's
it.
not a site
It's not a
plan
real
from this
project.
town, I can tell you that much. Even though it
not a real
says Route 9, it is not in this town, so that you wouldn't be conducting business if you did it together.
And just for everyone's edification, training, we can have all 7 members if it's training. It's not considered a meeting, because we're just discussing a training session.
I'm sorry, Liz was asking me a question. Yeah, you're just conducting this training session, so it could be exempt from open meetings law.
A great exercise.
You guys want me to try to email some dates where we could sit together and do it together?
That'd be great.
That'd be fun. Okay, great.
I mean,
We are land use junkies. Give me new things for land use.
Maybe we can do a couple. Yeah.
I'm not sure I gave you enough information to completely fill it out, but you should do the best and indicate where you need more information, where there's mistakes.
So you've actually, what I heard you say is you have tried to be our average applicant.
Yes, your average developer. No, just, you know, plain old vanilla developer that's not necessarily represented by a big-time consultant.
That'd be great. Thank you so much, Victoria.
Yes. You're welcome. Thanks for listening.
We actually never had adjournment.
I make a motion to adjourn.
Yeah.
Aye.
Thank you, media committee.
Thank you, Media Committee.
Thanks for staying, guys.
Sure, it's good stuff.
It's really the first time
Can I copy that secret room I gave you?
All at the same time.
Let me copy it. Let me make it, because Michael didn't get a copy. I thought we'd do it in groups, but we ran out of time.
Thanks, I'm sorry, Laura, didn't leave.
What? Yeah, yeah.
She's probably gonna be